Right, you stinking mutt. Into your cell and keep quiet. The jailer growled as he manhandled me into a cold, damp room, then clanged an iron-barred gate behind me and turned a key in the lock. His rancid beer breath rattled my nose. Now both of you, listen up. The man in the cell next to you could be your savior or your downfall. The secret to your release is somewhere in the cell next to yours, so only your companion can find it. High tide is in 1 hour and will completely fill both of your cells. Be out or be drowned. Hey, you next door. I grabbed the cell gate. Come to the bars. Let me shake your hand. My name's Edmund Barker. Reach through the gate and shake my hand. I held my arm out as far as I could to the left, and another man grasped my fingers. The other man's hand was greasy and rough, dirt and dust ingrained in it. The poor sod had been down here a while. We shook for a few moments before he released his grip. Now hold on there just a moment, gentlemen, the jailer said. There are rules. I said keep quiet, didn't I? He tapped his boot on the stone floor. There was a faint puddle splash already. Since you're so keen, Edmund Barker, you can go first. You may relay whatever you know to your fellow prisoner, and try to free him first. But he must not communicate anything to you in return until he is free of his cell. So be quick about it. A drowning man will be less likely to stick around and help you. We don't have much time. Is there anything in your cell that suggests where I should start my search? The other man simply moaned. Come, friend, what's your name? I strained my ears for any response, but there was nothing more. Perhaps, said the jailer, scraping a wooden chair along the floor and taking a seat with a deep sigh. Your companion takes the rules more seriously than you do. And perhaps that is best for both of you. I started searching for clues. I shuffled to the front, right, bottom corner of my cell wall, against the bars, sweeping my fingers over the rough stonework, moving higher and to the left. I felt for any slight indentation or irregularity in the wall. There's nothing here. I shook my fists into the air, then ran my grazed fingers over the empty sockets where my eyes used to be. It'll take longer than an hour to examine the entire cell. Perhaps you should have thought of that before. You might still have your sight if you hadn't gawped at the king's daughter in her dressing room. I heard her scream. I ran to her aid. I wasn't to know her distress was caused by a new corset being fitted. You had no business being in that part of the palace, and you have paid the price of being there. I ran the tips of my fingers under my tattered shirt and over the branded skin on my chest. Peeping Tom. King Benson was cruel, and his high court dished out what they considered fitting penalties. I turned my attention to the back wall of my cell. I started on the top left corner, feeling over the stonework as rapidly as I could. But there was nothing unusual. What am I missing? I shouted at the guard. What is there here that I would see if I had eyes to see with? I'm going to set another rule, said the jailer. You may ask me only 3 questions. You can expect honest answers, but I will not tell you anything which might lead to your immediate release. There must be some element of wit about you in order to escape. You can't keep changing the rules. I fell into a desperate crouch near the ground, quaking on my bare feet. I will do whatever I wish. Now, choose your questions carefully. I reached out a hand to steady myself, placing it firmly on the floor as I rocked forward in despair. My fingers caught a deep groove, as if between 2 flagstones, but when I followed it to its end, some 3 inches later, it did not adjoin another stone. I sat down and felt the groove again, in both directions. At one end was the shape of an arrowhead carved into the floor. I ran my hands in the direction the arrow pointed, and there was another groove carved into the rock, this one at the right angles to the first, but again ending in an arrowhead. There was a whole series of them, each pointing to another. I followed the trail. After a short time, my fingers found the unwelcome coldness of rising seawater. The cell's flooding! We don't have long. We must work together. The jailer cleared his throat. Now, be reminded your cellmate must not communicate anything to you until you free him from his cell. We'll both be drowned. The water was nearly covering my fingers. The sea continued to rise as I worked, the blood vessels in my feet and hands constricting with the dropping temperature of the water around them. I clenched and flexed my hands as I went, trying to keep them warm, but as the ocean swirled into my cell, it brought freezing air with it, and soon my whole body quivered. By the time I had found the final arrow, the water was so deep I had to raise myself up on my knees to breathe every minute or so. With each jagged breath I took, I risked losing the point on the floor I had reached, but each time I managed to find it again. The final arrow pointed to a specific stone in the bottom of the wall, and there were markings on that too. I ran my shaking fingers, sore and scratched from the floor, across the carving, and read out the letters as I went. M-I-R-R-O-R. Mirror. The word is mirror. What can it mean? No one here is permitted to answer that question, said the jailer, his breath catching in his throat as the cold began to affect him too. Friend, if there is a mirror in your cell, look behind it, around it, under it. No, wait, your key will be in my cell, and vice versa. That's how this works. We must find each other's freedom. The water had reached my knees. You will have to hurry up in there. My boots are soaked through, and I'll not stay much longer, said the jailer, his voice becoming mist on the air. Are you going to help me, friend? I spluttered through the bars. The other man waded out of his cell and stood directly in front of me on the other side of the bars. He took my right hand in his left, passing my bleeding fingers under his saturated shirt and over his branded chest. Would you like to ask your questions now? The jailer asked. Does he already know how to save me? I said, the water now past waist deep. Yes, stammered the jailer through chattering teeth. He must simply speak the word carved into the wall in his cell. Then why does he not do it? I screamed at the man, pulling my hands back from his chest. He's trying to tell you that himself, said the jailer. The other man reached through the bars and took my hands again, placing them back on his skin. What was your crime? I asked as I steadied myself in the water, breathing hard. I tried to examine the brand. T-R-A-I-T-O-R. Traitor! A traitor to who? The king? I was dizzy. I didn't know how traitors were treated. That's right, said the jailer. A traitor through and through. And what would he say if I asked him how he was punished? If he could speak, he would have to say, "My lips are sealed." The jailer paused for a moment and let out a grim laugh. It's time for us to go, Edmund. You've been unlucky. I screamed and rattled the bars of my cell as the chilling water rushed at chest height around me. I strained my voice and every sinew of my body raging against the king and against my own torment. There was a moment of warmth in my right hand as the other prisoner gripped it. I leaned my head against the grasp as if to express horror and sorrow that I could not help. A tiny moment of hope, and then it was gone. Come on, lad, up the steps, said the jailer, pulling the other man away. You should know by now that you can't help them. The others. Your lips are one thing, but that's your true punishment. To be a traitor to your own kind. You'll do it again and again tomorrow night, and the next, until some poor bastard fails to find the key. I collapsed into the swirling water. The last thing I heard were heavy footsteps, triapsing away up the steps above me.